Hello, everyone. My name is Jake McFarland, and welcome to Project Management in the Real World. This webinar is hosted by the William G. Rohr College of Business graduate programs. And before we get started, I just want to make a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is going to be recorded and it's going to be posted on our website within a few weeks. Everyone that registered will be sent a link where they can go sign up and see recording when it's ready. We're excited to hear the conversation with our expert panelists and engaging moderators. This evening's event will include both moderated question and answer period, followed by a audience Q&A period. So please feel free to submit questions to the chat. So a brief introduction. My name is Jake McFarland. I'm a current MBA student at Rowan University, and I'm the inaugural Data Analytics Fellow. I'm currently a Data Analytics Manager at Comcast, and I am joined today by Jason Salvatore, the MBA Program Coordinator, and Tricia Munyon, the MBA Special Projects Coordinator, who will be assisting with all of the back-end coordination. Jason and Tricia will be playing timekeepers, so they may occasionally interrupt us with some time checks. So the first person that I would like to introduce is Tom Rizzo. Tom Rizzo is a construction project manager who has focused on the greater Philadelphia area throughout his entire career. He has recently left Otis Elevator Company for a new PM position at ExecuPower, focusing on Atlantic City expansion, utility expansion. Tom has a long list of successful multi-stage projects, but his expertise focuses on financial planning and execution of projects. Welcome, Tom. Next, I would like to introduce Kevin Miller. Kevin is a project manager with 23 years of experience in IT. He utilizes a variety of project management methodologies and techniques, but has pivoted more recently to a directed focus on change management. He is the founder and principal consultant of Delta Technology, where he blends the two skill sets together to deliver projects and change that actually get adopted. Lastly, we have Dr. Shen, PhD. She is an associate professor of management of information systems at Rowan University. She's an accomplished researcher who has a passion for teaching and project management. She prides herself in instilling that same passion for project management and information systems in her students by providing practical examples and hands-on experience with tools and use cases. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. So, we wanted to ask a question to all of our panelists to get the session started. And we wanted to know, what is project management to you all? Any of you can answer.
I'd be happy to kick it off, Jake. So I was thinking about this week, and I think it kind of just comes down to clarity. A project manager takes a lot of sometimes vague ideas and plans, and maybe a goalpost in the distance, and they develop clarity so that it can be communicated and planned for successfully. Yeah.
Yeah, and to add on to what Tom said, I think what it comes down to is you're responsible for delivering a change, whether that be a physical change, such as building a vehicle, or a digital change, such as a website, software, something like that. And you're set to deliver it within your constraints. So your quality, your scope, your timeline, of course, your budget.
And I wanted to add to the two panelist words about project management. I think project management is a very significant skill set that carries very important, very big importance in both personal and professional aspects of lives. So everyone is actually practicing project management, from planning a family vacation, renovate your kitchen, to pursue a college or graduate degree, or taking on a project work. So everyone needs to have some project management skills to make their life and professional lives more successful.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for all of those great answers. So this next question is actually directed at Kevin. Kevin, what is the difference between project management and change management?
So that is a great question. It's one I get asked a lot, Jake. Project management, and this is what I heard when I was learning about the two disciplines, right? Project management is uh, is preparing the business. Is preparing a change for the business. So as I mentioned in my previous definition, right? Whether it's a building, whether it's a vehicle, whether it's some software, it's preparing something for the business. Change management is preparing the business for the change, right? So something new is coming along and we're expecting people to either purchase that new thing or use that new thing. And they're going to want to know how to do it. They're going to want to be comfortable with it. So you don't get the full value of the change, whatever it is, until you've delivered it, which is project management, and until it's adopted, which is change management. And so it's two very different disciplines, two very different skill sets. They do overlap, but when you start thinking of them in that way, you can start seeing a lot more success.
That is truly fascinating. So this next question is directed at Tom. Can you describe a complex project that you managed successfully to completion, and what were the key factors that led to success?
Sure. One of the more complex ones that I've been involved in was at Otis Elevator, where I was in 2019 responsible for installing 19 elevators at the Stout Center for Criminal Justice in Philadelphia. That eventually expanded to add another 23 elevators in some other major municipal buildings in the city center. This was particularly complex, not because of the technical work, because that's always a complex part, but because of the broad stakeholders that were involved, ranging from city officials who were delegating and funding the project to the judges board who ran court operations in the building, criminal defense attorneys who wanted to blame project work on delays to the justice system, and then all of that on top of the actual physical work getting done. We had to move in about 100,000 pounds of steel and equipment into a fully operating courthouse without too much interruption. And then on top of that, you throw in a global pandemic around the 25% mark, and some IT cybersecurity issues, which caused us to resort to communicating only through the postal system for a period of time. That definitely created one of the more complex problems to have to solve. But the thing that kept it on track the whole time was the stakeholders, the team members that we worked with. Having city officials who were willing and always ready to communicate changes, sign off on decisions, and not be absentee landlords, so to say, thinking the project was just going to steer itself. But not just the people who had the money, everyone who was involved, everyone in the building facilities team who helped navigate problems. A lot of these issues were resolved on lower levels because people were willing to work with each other regularly to squash small issues before they became big problems. And then in this particular project, our vendors were great team members as well. We went through very radical swings in supply chain needs as the project shut down due to COVID and then was accelerated due to some other items. So being able to not just communicate quickly and regularly with everyone who was providing inputs to the project, but to have them respond in kind, in a flexible manner, getting shipments to our facilities during times of what you would think not possible when the whole world economy was shutting down. We're actually able to finish ahead of schedule, something that was almost unheard of when we were all going into lockdown. So yeah, having stakeholders willing and ready to tackle every challenge together. That's how you're going to overcome the uncertainty that inevitably will come up on every project.
Yeah, it's amazing that you were able to account for all of those things, especially with the global pandemic. I mean, I imagine it was difficult for everybody. Speaking quite frankly, it was difficult for a lot of people. But being a construction project manager where you have supply chain delays and all of those other compounding things that will ultimately affect your deliverable dates, and still finishing ahead of schedule is nothing short of incredible.
Yeah, the whole team really came together. We were completely shut down for about 10 days. And then some of the team members in City Hall were able to pull an emergency authorization and allow our project to reopen, being a critical infrastructure for the justice system, which of course no one wanted to have shut down. We can't delay justice just because of global pandemic. Some things are constitutional and very important. So yeah, our suppliers pumped the brakes real quick, and then they ramped it up, and the courthouse actually had some activities reduced, which allowed us to increase our manpower on site, because there were a lot of courtrooms that were not utilized. As they were switching virtual, we were actually gearing up to be more in person on site, and that's actually how we accomplished beating our original schedule.
It sounds like you had a lot of curveballs, and it takes a good project manager to adjust to hitting those curveballs, which it sounds like you did. Great job with that, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. We swung and struck, not struck out, but had a lot of strikes from those curveballs along the way. But you just keep swinging, right? Just keep swinging with the team behind you.
Yeah, that's amazing. So this next question is going to be directed towards Dr. Shen. Dr. Shen, you've taught project management at a bachelor's degree level and are currently developing a project management course at the graduate level at Rome coming this fall. Can you share some of the themes that you believe are most critical for student learning in a project management course?
Sure. First of all, I want to expand a little bit on the project management definition. I would say like project management is both a science and art. So the science part involves a lot of the systematic application of methods, tools, and techniques to project activities so that we can meet project requirements. And it relies a lot on established best practices, logical analysis, and data-driven decision-making to ensure project success. And on the art side, it involves a lot of the applications of subjective skills to address the unique challenges of each project and its surrounding environment, such as the risks, the global pandemic, as Tom just mentioned, conflicts between the different stakeholders, organizational culture, industry dynamics, and a lot of things. So on the art side, it relies a lot on the experience, judgment, and interpersonal skills to lead project teams to achieve project success. So in my courses, both at the undergraduate and at the graduate level, I would say my course focuses more on the science side of project management. So there are three main themes in the courses. First is to introduce students the terminologies and key techniques in the project management discipline. And the knowledge in these areas can be applied to projects in any industry and field. And the second theme is to try to reinforce these concepts and techniques by using a project management software. So currently at my undergraduate course, we use Microsoft Project, and at the graduate level, I'm exploring different software, maybe Jira is the software that I'm thinking about right now. And I understand that the software we introduce in the courses may not be the software that people will be using at their work particularly, but the learning experience should help them pick up new project management software at their work much quickly, and also to reinforce the concepts and techniques that they learned from the course. And the third theme is to develop an appreciation of the value of project management in organizations, because successful projects will help organizations achieve their strategic goals and bring competitive advantages to the organizations. And in my courses, I try to use case studies to help students develop this appreciation. And I think for people who take project management courses, some of them may already set up their mind to become a project manager. And some of them may just explore project management as a possible career path. And either way, they will learn the different things that I just introduced. And I hope my course will help them, even if they don't have a project manager as a title in their job position, they probably will be like a part-time project leader. For example, if you are senior staff or functional manager in an organization, you may be tasked with leading smaller projects in their departments. So project management skills will be helpful for them. And even if they are not project leaders or project managers, become an effective team member, it also requires them to understand project management so that they can help to run the project more efficiently. So these are the things that I try to achieve in my course. And I hope that's something that will help the students to become either a better team player or a good project manager, or consider project management as a possible career path.
I think one of my favorite, oh, sorry, Tom, you can go.
I was just going to, just agree that a career in project management, that's one path, but the skills are so universal.
Yeah.
Everyone will come across some sort of implementation on their team, even if they don't regularly do project work. And like you said, you can really become a leader when interfacing with larger projects, even if that's not your main drive. I wish everyone had some project management training background, because we come across people every day who would benefit a little bit and be a little more effective on our teams if they just had a little exposure to it.
Yeah, and I would like to hear from our industry expert, like what kind of skills you're looking for in people who work on your project, even if they don't have project management as their career path.
Just an interesting, sidebar on this. My son was in the Boy Scouts of America, and in order to make the rank of Eagle Scout, which is the highest rank you can achieve, you have to run a project, right? You not only have to show up, learn it, earn the badges and so forth, but you have to run a project. And I just thought that was a great thing. In my opinion, project management should be taught in every high school in America at some level, right? Even at a basic level, because you do get skills
Yeah.
that you will use throughout your life, as has been mentioned before.
Yeah, I think the kind of skills such as I think project management helps you to obtain a big picture view of the things that you have on hand, and help you to see how to prioritize them and how to finish what you need to finish first, right? And so a lot of skills that will be beneficial to everyone.
And just as a personal little anecdote, can't speak highly enough of formally learning project management, either from a professor or from some sort of course, just because it really did open my eyes to the things I was doing incorrectly in just day-to-day work, but even applied personally. One of my favorite anecdotes is somebody at Jira, an Atlassian developer who helps develop the Jira product, was talking about how it always annoyed him that there was always overruns during Thanksgiving dinner. So he created a Gantt chart of each task that needed to be accomplished and the dependencies for each task. And he started and finished on the time that he set out by following this Gantt chart. It's just something like that, where a complex dinner can be followed by using project management. It's absolutely incredible. So on that note, uh, I'm going to ask Kevin another question. So Kevin, how do you manage conflicts or difficult stakeholders in projects?
Yeah, so great question. Conflicts are always going to arise, and you are going to have some difficult stakeholders. That's a given. I think the best way to do this is to utilize what Dr. Shen mentioned. It's a little bit part of the science of project management, right? And that's called stakeholder management. Now, that's the what, right? The how, you have some leeway, but you have to do the what, which is the stakeholder management. And what you should do is set expectations early, right? One of the biggest conflicts I usually see on a project is with commitment from a stakeholder. You have a lot of people who just want to be involved. They want to stop by every now and then. They want to see how it's going. But when you have a sponsor, you have to have that person committed, right? That person has to be not just involved, not just getting updates, but driving the project. And you have to set that expectation up front. Now, for your other key stakeholders, you have to determine who do you need committed and who do you need just involved. And that's around the stakeholder management aspect of project management. As far as conflicts, generally you try to lay out all of your expectations up front. You try to agree to them up front. You usually have you should always have a project kickoff meeting at the beginning of a project where you lay out what is in scope, what is not in scope. That's critical. Don't just assume that something you didn't have in scope is out of scope. Explicitly state that to avoid those conflicts down the road. And when someone comes back at a later time and disagrees with something that should be in scope or shouldn't be in scope, you can go back to your documentation, your charter, and you can reference that. I personally like getting signatures, physical signatures, and I know that's very difficult in the digital world these days, right? But when I have a physical presence, I like actually getting physical signatures on the project charter so that if a conflict comes up 2 years from now, I can go back and say, well, we did agree. Now, that doesn't mean it can't change, but that usually simmers down the conflict right away. So again, expectation management with your stakeholders and just setting clear expectations up front.
I am curious if anyone else has anything to add on conflict resolution because I feel like that's something that constantly comes up in a project, and it might be useful to hear other points of view as well.
Yeah, I have dealt with a decent amount of conflict, and I remember signing, I think, a charter on one of your projects, Kevin, which I thought was unique and really drove the point home that we're all owners, and getting that type of responsibility from people, it a lot of times will change their mindset where I'm not just one person responsible for a little portion of this project and going to enforce my rule on my little kingdom. But by signing a common project charter, which I've seen done before, everyone realizes that my name is right next to someone else's on this big sheet of goals. And we all carry the same weight, whether we're the CEO next to the project manager, next to the payroll manager, next to whoever else, the process engineer. All those signatures take up the same space and carry the same weight. And that's a really good way of kind of laying the ground for everyone to work together and having respect for each other, which if you can do that from the start, then you can kind of reduce some conflict later on.
Okay. Here, reverb. So this next question is for Tom, talking about stakeholders and stakeholder management. Can you provide a time or an example when soft skills or EQ were more integral to a project's success than a textbook process?
Yeah, this is a great question to follow up what Kevin was talking about. Once you identify the stakeholders and their strengths and weaknesses and where they belong in the project, you have to get the message out there. And all of the tools and plans we make, they're all just daydreams until we actually get the message into people's heads and they start executing on the project and performing the work. You know, depending on scale, the project may extend across different organizations outside of one organization. So a lot of times you can run into political boundaries, not political in the form of government, but inter-office politics. People wanting to boast and have bravado to boost their own interests, which can be detrimental to the project. So it is really important to follow the tools and follow the science part of it, because that's going to give you the guide rails to know what message you're delivering. But then those soft skills are absolutely critical to get the message across. If you're working with different sets of people, you're going to deliver the same message 10 different ways. Whether you're working with vendors, you might need written, very dry, legal, contractual type communication to limit confusion and, have as much scope clarity as possible so that there's no argument and debate down the line. And then if you're working with a sponsor, you definitely need to project professionalism, but also meet them and understand what their goals are for the project. And a lot of times that's only going to come through patience and listening to them. And you're not going to treat them the same way you would treat an employee or a subcontractor. And then the people who are actually doing the work, you need to have a whole different approach with them, because they're really the ones who are going to get it done. And as much as we want to give respect to the people writing the checks and sponsoring it, professional humility, in my opinion, is absolutely essential when communicating plans and getting feedback from the team members who are typing the keyboard if it's a coding type project, or turning the screws if it's something construction related. They're the actual people who are going to be executing the plan. So if you don't take the time, and I think someone's time is the most precious thing we can give. So you can't rush through understanding someone. You need to use your soft skills first to listen and understand where someone's coming from, and then deliver the message with as much respect, in whatever method that person is used to. Some people prefer this virtual medium. A lot of times you have to go on site, you have to talk to someone, you have to have a cup of coffee with them, and just be patient. Some of the biggest problems that I've found on projects were 6 months, a year before the problem hit the fan, so to speak, and it was over a cup of coffee, 15 minutes into a conversation where someone pointed out a small inconsistency, a small concern that they didn't think was a big deal at the time, but they thought they just might mention. And it was only through that patience that we were able to log that risk and identify it and make sure it was handled before it became a huge issue. And all that comes from just talking to people, and those soft skills, they just get developed through practice and patience.
Yeah, the stakeholder management is a huge portion of any project success, and having the ability to just sit down with somebody and kind of make them feel heard and appreciated is arguably one of the most important things that a project can do. Because most of these projects, even if it's small, they do implement a change. So having the patience and the presence to know that this change is probably going to impact somebody at some point, whether it's big or small, is really important to communicate, and it's really important to slowly draw out and let people adapt as they need to.
And to add to that, Jake and Tom, something I would say is project managers need to be very adaptable and communicate in the way that other people want to be communicated with. Like, just because you're the manager, it doesn't mean you could say, well, I'm going to send out an email every Friday and I expect you to reply. That doesn't work, right? It's something that took me a while to learn in my career because, quite frankly, when I became a project manager, I thought I could just kind of set how things were going to go and people would be expected to follow it. That's just not the case. You need to adapt to the people who you need to work with. And it may be 12 different styles. That's how it goes, right? Now, hopefully you can group some of them together so you're not reaching out to 12 people individually, but if that's what it requires, that's what it requires. And, you know, you need to be properly staffed to do that and have enough time to do it, but you definitely need to have that adaptability.
I also want to add to what Tom just said, Tom and Kevin just said about project managers' ability to adapt and to find the best way to communicate with different parties. In my research about using agile development methodologies or agile project management in organizations with hierarchical culture, people find it hard, the team members find it hard to trust in project managers or top or middle managers about what they say, to take risks, to make mistakes, and seek help. And they were afraid that there will be some bad consequences happen to them. So it's really important for project managers to really convey the ideas through the different ways that people can accept, as well as to strengthen those messages through their own actions, such as project managers taking the opportunity of meetings to acknowledge mistakes he or himself or herself has made, and to show the project team members that there's no really negative consequences for small mistakes like this. It's a learning experience, especially when they are using a new project management methodology, such as an agile methodology. So it's really important also to strengthen the messages through actions besides communicating. And that's, I think, another way of communication, not just verbal communication, right? Through actions as well.
Well, thank you all for that really stimulating conversation. It's been great. So I actually do have one more question, and this one is for Dr. Shen. Well, really all panelists, I'm sorry. What advice do you have for new project managers just starting out in their careers? And what about breaking into the field of project management would you give to a person who's interested in breaking into the field?
So I can suggest, you know, there are certain skill sets that I think a good project manager has. So I think knowing yourself and knowing the skill sets that the discipline, you know, needs, and determining if you're a good match for that discipline is the first step, right? If you are someone who collects something, if you are someone who is very detail oriented, if you're someone who likes to follow a plan, all of these are good traits for project management. If you are someone who, you know, they say you have blue collar people, white collar people, and then no collar people, right? So if you're someone who fits that no collar, you're a free spirit. Project management's going to probably be difficult for you, right? So it's very much a follow the rules, follow the plan type of thing. So I think knowing yourself is the first step. And as far as just starting out in your career, I mean, the best advice I can give is what someone told me and I followed, and that is listen and learn, right? Ask, if you see someone who's a little more experienced than you or a lot more experienced than you, ask them questions. How would you handle this? Get advice, find a mentor, and then try to learn. And eventually you should adapt to the things you agree with and the things you don't. So it is trial and error, but definitely listen and try to absorb as much as you can when just starting out.
I'm sorry, Dr. Shen, do you want to?
Tom, Kevin, you can, I'm sorry, Tom, you can go first.
Okay. Um, yeah, and as far as breaking in the actual job search, it is sometimes a competitive field. So I think I noticed in the chat someone was trying to transition into potentially a project management career. Um, there's a few things, of course, that are very run of the mill but important. Uh, some of those are certifications. Uh, the standard or very commonly used ones from PMI. Uh, some of them, the PMP, can be very rigorous to get. So if that's a little out of reach, there's lower ones that are offered by those organizations. PMI specifically is a CAP-M, which is, I think, a certified associate of project management. And I know Google, I think, has a free certification program as well. They're not only going to give the vocabulary, but it's something to put on your resume that's going to help it stand out from others on the pile. It's showing initiative. And even though you may not have an actual project experience under your belt, it's showing that you can speak the language, which is half the battle in this world. And then on the point of actual experience, you don't have to have a $500 or $100 million budget to be a project manager. There might be something in your workplace right now that qualifies as a project. A project, the textbook definition, it has a beginning and an end. And I think there's some change in the middle. So it might be something as simple as if you work at a call center and they're rolling out a new training plan. That's a project. You can raise your hand and you can be a part of it. And that can go towards hours that would qualify for a more advanced certification, or it can go on a resume. And you just need to view the world through project managers' eyes because they're everywhere. And once you start diving in, you can start to sharpen your skill set. And then hopefully, expand your network a little bit because that always helps as well. Reaching out to existing project management offices, that's a great way to break in as well.
Yeah, I just want to quickly add to the other two experts who just talked about it. So a lot of project managers, they started their career in a specific functional area or specific field. So they develop their field-specific competence through their work, whether they have a college degree in finance, in marketing, in information systems, in human resources. They become expert in those areas first, and then opportunities present themselves in front of them for them to have the opportunity to lead projects. Or they jump on those opportunities. And so those technical background that they had obtained from their field, which is a very important part of the project management skill set, and combined with their soft skills, such as leadership, communication, being a team player, etc. That's another area that they can develop through their work, through their experience, and eventually project management language, the project management discipline. So those three areas combined will help to prepare a person for their project management career, I think.
I'm an example of that, Dr. Shen. I was a software developer for 10 years before I became a project manager. And people just kept coming to me and asking me to kind of lead things. And eventually I threw in the towel and I gave up on my resistance. And I said, okay, this is clearly what I'm meant to do. And I'm glad I made the switch. So, but yes, I'm the perfect example. That 10 years until I became a PM.
Yes. So your technical background in that specific field really becomes very, very valuable before you become a project manager, for you to become a project manager.
Definitely, yeah.
And just to add on to what Tom said about the certifications, I actually have my CAP-M. I was not able to qualify for the PMP when I first wanted to take it, so I took the CAP-M. And it has helped me get interviews, and it's helped me learn the language of project management. And I feel as though I really did become a better project manager because of it. It helped get me my opportunity at Comcast. I know that for a fact. And I use everything that I've learned from that day to day, because I manage somebody now, and I have a bunch of projects that he is working on simultaneously. So I don't know where I would be without my certification. So on that note, I'm actually going to pass the baton over to Jen Maiden for a quick commercial about the Rowan Graduate Business Programs.
Hi, everyone. We'd like to take a quick moment during these webinars just to talk about the MBA program. Thanks for everyone who's here with us, the audience and all of our experts. I'm really enjoying this session. I'm a really big fan of project management, and I'll agree with everyone. It makes you more effective. Whether you're the project manager or you're just part of a team, it is very clear to me when I'm working on projects, especially larger projects, who has ever been exposed to project management and who has not, just when you're working on a team with people. For the MBA program at Rowan University, want to share that it is one of the most flexible MBA programs in the country. You can do the entire program face-to-face or the entire program online, or you can mix and match depending on what would work best for you. We have 11 different concentrations. You can customize 50% of the degree to fit with what you want to do in your career. And as Dr. Shen was mentioning, we're going to be adding some project management content as well. So you can explore that. Doesn't have to be a concentration. It could be just an elective class that you take. And we also have recently relaunched our MBA and our MSF fellowship program. This is where we combine scholarship funding, some really focused mentoring, and initiatives that are focused on positive societal impact. So it's a really interesting way to grow your skills, have part or all of your MBA degree paid for, and meet a lot of really great contacts. And then I'll also share that if you're a Rowan University student, we have free access to LinkedIn Learning for all of our students. And LinkedIn Learning has a lot of project management classes and tutorials and skills that you can work through. So if you're interested in learning more, join us Wednesday, May 24th at 6 o'clock. And we'll be having an information session, and we'll share a lot more information about the MBA program during that information session. So thank you again, everyone. Great to see you here.
Thanks so much, Jen. Okay, so we'll hop right back into it. We do have a few questions from the audience, so I am going to start firing those off. Dr. Shen, do you have any favorite online resources for learning project management from scratch or reinforcing it?
Yeah, of course. Like Jen just mentioned, actually LinkedIn Learning is also my go-to website to look for tutorials on various business-related topics and software-related tutorials. So there are a lot of tutorials on project management and different aspects of project management, as well as project management software. So that is one good resource to tap into. And as Jen mentioned, all the Rowan students have free access to it. Well, not free, you pay your technology fee, but you can access it for free. And another resource I would like to recommend is the PMI website, Project Management Institute, which is the international organization for for project management professionals. It has tons of resources, including information about certifications that our expert has just mentioned about. And there are business solutions, there are case studies. There are a lot of useful information that you can explore. And they also have student membership, which is only $32 per year. That gives you access to even more resources. And we also have local PMI PMI chapters. For example, there's a New Jersey chapter. You can just Google and find their website. The best thing about the local chapter is that they organize events, either in person or virtual events, where you can hear from industry experts like a webinar like today. And also there are networking events or career fair, and just depending on the different local chapter what they do. But that is also a great resource to tap into, because you can get to know people who are in the field for a while, and you can learn from them. You can know people, you can network there. So those are the two resources that I think that just came top to my mind.
Yeah, I'd actually like to second the LinkedIn Learning. I actually, it's a little self-promotion here, but I actually just got approved to be a LinkedIn Learning author, and so I'll be working on producing a course for LinkedIn Learning. Pluralsight is another great resource that's online. It is geared toward the technical side of things, IT people, but I am a Pluralsight author. I've created 7 courses online there. And if you're looking to learn project management, Casey Ayers actually has an outstanding project management series that helps you get trained for the PMP. And I and myself and Alice Meredith run a change management series of courses. So you can get a lot of knowledge by a very small subscription fee, or as it's included in your tuition. I highly recommend taking advantage of those resources, and always reach out to the authors. You can find all of them, all of us, on social media. Reach out and make connections. You never know when they can help in the future. So I recommend that as well.
Yeah, to add on to Kevin's statement about Casey Ayers, I watched it to prepare for my CAPM. It was amazing. Really, really, really amazing course. It really prepared me for that exam. And I've used LinkedIn Learning for a lot of different things as well. So the next question is going to be directed towards Tom. Tom, are there any resources or advice for introducing project management software to a person or team that has never used one before? How can you convince them that this is something that will help them, not just another task to learn?
Well, that almost sounds like Kevin's area of expertise for change management. I'll give it a whack, but he might need to clean up my response a little bit. When adopting new tools, it's really important to keep reminding about the end, which is not 2 days or 3 days or 5 weeks. It might be 6 months from the original inception of using the tool, where it can really become useful and accelerate their productivity. That's really one of the things that I've seen, where a new instrument is introduced and it slows things down because it's new. So people fall off and then they never really realize the benefits. So need to continually communicate the long-term benefits, and then always provide the support, sometimes very patiently if they're not very tech savvy, to make sure they fight through the learning process so that they don't struggle on the first use and never choose to use it ever again.
And that's actually why I wanted you to answer this question, because you're a construction project manager. So generally the people that you work with are not as tech savvy, and they can be, but generally they aren't. So it was interesting to hear your insight on that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A lot of the people I've worked with, they work with their hands. They can be very tech savvy, but when someone comes in from a corporate office 1,000 miles away and says, "I need you to start filling out this form, this tool," they're covered in grease, and it's the last thing they need. And it's very rarely explained to them why it's going to benefit them. Not to say we're all selfish, but we don't show up for altruistic reasons. We all have our jobs to complete, and if that person's not seeing, it's a little bit of salesmanship. Even if it doesn't benefit them, you have to make sure they understand why they're taking time out of their day, slowing down their metrics to use the tool.
Yeah, as Tom mentioned, there's a lot of change management involved there. So, not only do you want to make them aware of the new tool or the new process, you really do want to focus on that desire. You want to focus on them getting to want to do it, whether it's for themselves or for the organization as a whole. And that may be benefits, but it may also be the negative effects of not doing it. What's going to happen if we don't switch over to the software? Well, maybe the company goes out of business. Who knows, right? So you want to really sell the idea and really explain and get them to buy in. Once you get the buy-in, then comes the training, right? Everyone wants to just jump ahead to, well, we have to use this new tool. I'm going to send you to training. Training is step 3, not step 1. And then, of course, after they had the training, allow them time to learn the tool, right? Give them a chance to make mistakes. Everybody falls off the bike when they learn to ride it, everyone. So allow people to make mistakes. And when they start adopting, reinforce it. It's go back, tell them thank you, say congratulations, give them a little public recognition. Maybe there's a bonus in there somewhere, but you have to reinforce it so that they stick with it. And a lot of that is change management, no matter the audience.
Yeah, I keep nodding my head when I hear Tom and Kevin talks about their experience, because a lot of research is done about introducing software, whether it's project management software or any other software. We always emphasize it's not just installing a software, it's like change management. You have to make people be aware of the value of the software, of the system to their everyday work, to the organization. Give them reward. Sometimes it's not necessarily just monetary reward, but just a pat on the shoulder or a shout out at a meeting to acknowledge them and acknowledge not only the success, sometimes but also the failures. It's okay to make mistakes, as Kevin just said. So these have been validated. What you guys have said has been validated by research as well. So I'm glad to hear that the research I read about is really true and it's being practiced in industry. So.
Yeah, I can parrot everything everyone just said because it's all really important at the end of the day. Keeping people engaged and bought into the project's success is ultimately what's going to help deliver the project. So this next question is going to be for Kevin. For someone who works in commercial risk, what do you find is the highest risk in project management, especially in the current economic climate? Sorry.
Well, every project is different, so the risk and the risk levels for those things may vary, but one thing that's constant, which is always a risk, is people, okay? If people don't buy in to what you're doing, that's a risk right there, right? You have to have people buy in. You have to have the commitment that you need for the project to be successful. You have to get them to want to do the work. Or to want to learn the new tool or to want to use the new tool. So people are always a risk. You also have a risk of flight, right? Throughout a long project, especially with longer projects, people can leave the organization and with them goes all of that knowledge. And so you want to make sure that you have contingency plans for that as well. Now, when it comes to materials, you have to purchase things, whether it be physical materials or software licenses, right? There's always risk around that, but that varies by the project and the level of intensity. But people, if it weren't for the people, everything would be easy, right? I mean, that's the sticking point everywhere. So that's where the emotional intelligence, the change management comes into play, and just relationship building. And if you're thinking as a project manager, need to worry about relationships. I can't tell you that is farthest from the truth. You have to nurture those relationships. You're asking people to do something for you, whether it be to give you status updates once a week or twice a week, or to move something along in the process. You are asking them to do it. You have to have good relationships and ensure that they want to do that, or it's not going to happen. So I personally believe people is always the consistent risk in every project. Maybe not the biggest per project, but definitely across all.
Yeah, having your supporters is just so vital to any sort of project success, because having even one detractor can really derail any task or any deliverable, but it can really tank, especially if the detractor has some sort of political sway within the company, because they're a stakeholder, and if they start swaying stakeholders from supporter to detractor, there goes your project.
Yes, and to add to that, if you can convert the detractor to a supporter, they almost always become a mouthpiece. They will become your biggest supporter. Because when you take a non-believer and make them a believer, you know you have the buy-in all the way. And now they can help convert the other detractors. So again, it all comes back to stakeholder management.
So the last question is going to be directed towards Tom. So earlier was mentioned that we use project management in our everyday lives. As someone who doesn't always finish projects, what is good advice on how to manage multiple projects?
Well, I might be the worst person to answer that because I have a lot of projects around the house that fall by the wayside. Um, but there's some tools that you learn in just some basic intro to project management stuff that's going to help something you're trying to accomplish, break it down. The first thing that comes to mind is if you're not familiar with project management, the work breakdown structure, WBS. It is the simple process of taking what you're trying to do and you keep dividing it until it breaks down into the smallest little component. If you're struggling with remodeling your bathroom, it's a big project. There's a lot going on. You have to break it down all the way to not just the plumbing, but I need to contact an individual person to ask this specific question, and then you come up with a task list. And those individual tasks are less challenging because you can check them off. You can feel like you're making some progress. And even if you don't get all the way to the end right away, because you might get distracted, as we all do in our lives, maybe that's why they're falling by the wayside. You've made some measurable progress, and if you want to try using some of these tools we talked about, use some of the Microsoft tools. You can actually practice using OneNote, or you can make a Gantt chart online, I think, for free. And you'll have those things to come back to if your project is seasonal and you can't get through it this summer. You can come back next spring and pick up where you left off. Sometimes that's a big impediment, is once we stop, we don't know where to pick back up and we have to start back from zero. And then just from a personal note, a tool that I've used for trying to not get overwhelmed by too many projects is called a Kanban. And it's just really simple. It's a tool where I think it's Kanban. And it's just like a table, and you have 3 columns. You have your to do, and then your middle column is your doing, and then your last column is your done. And unlike a normal to do list, which grows and grows and grows, you limit how much you have in your doing phase. And I've done this with just sticky notes on a wall. And you take, what am I doing back to this bathroom project? I'm going to look for lampshades. You can literally take your sticky note and move it in the doing pile, and don't focus on anything else. You need to be able to focus on one task at a time. And sometimes that can help eliminate the ever-growing to-do list by having a doing list. What are you doing right now? And focus on that until it's done.
What a great way to close out this session. Awesome. Thank you to our audience, and thank you to our moderators, our panelists, and our moderators. This has been a really fun session, and we hope that everyone continues to explore their project management passion as we move forward. Thank you to everybody, and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.